So you want to tap into conscious parenting and stop yelling at your toddler. I'm a mom of a 3-year-old boy right now, and I can tell you I completely relate to this sentiment because I'm going through this right now. It can be frustrating when you've given your child a directive and they just don't listen. As a person and a mom who has suffered from speech delays, implementing these 5 tips, I've seen incredible results with my toddler, and I'm sure you will as well. And the first tip on how to stop yelling at your toddler is to give them warnings. Now look, most of the time when you give your child a warning, it's because they don't even know that what they're doing is wrong. So giving them a warning allows them to prep that what they're doing and the behavior that they're doing is not appropriate. Now look, I know back in the day when we were growing up, our parents used to be like one and done warning, but based on your child's age, you definitely want to make sure you're giving age appropriate warnings. For me, I usually give my son 2 warnings and then I take action. But if you have an 18-month-old, you might want to take action after 5 warnings. If you have an older child, you might want to decrease it some. Just make sure you're giving enough warnings based on their age. Make sure it's age appropriate. Also, by giving your child a warning, you're kind of giving them a heads up that if they don't listen to your directive, they will suffer consequences. Just like you don't like being caught off guard, children don't like being caught off guard either. You're going from 0 to 100 real quick. So giving warnings allows them to understand escalation and allows you to pre-warn them that if they don't follow your directive, there will be consequences. And so that way it kind of primes them for what's next. They don't want to be caught off guard, and neither do you. Moving on to the next tip, and that is to know your triggers. If you are not a parent, then you would not know that parenting is triggering, girl. It is triggering for all of us parents out here. We get triggered easily, okay? And trust me, between going to work, answering emails, wiping butts, cutting on the TV, fixing lunch, making dinner, you can get frustrated and overwhelmed very quickly. I know because I have to do it for my family as well. But knowing your triggers will allow you to better prepare in the event your child does them, because there's a high possibility that your child is going to trigger you throughout the day. If you also know things that your child does that will trigger you, it will decrease the likelihood of you freaking out on your entire family because they did something that triggered you. And sometimes for young kids, they don't even know that the thing that they're doing is triggering you. One of the ways that you can decrease the likelihood of having your triggers make you yell is to make a list of things you have to do throughout the day. Maybe you need to make lunch and make dinner. That is one way of decreasing the anxiety, which is likely to cause you to have a trigger and yell. Also, if you know certain activities trigger you, like your child jumping off the sofa, playing in the toilet water, hitting your dog, there are things that you can do ahead of time so that you can distract them to decrease the likelihood of being triggered. Sometimes you can be triggered through stress, time of the month. There are so many things that can trigger you. So knowing those triggers and better preparing for them will decrease the likelihood of you screaming and yelling at everybody, girl. Suppose you still need extra support when it comes time for potty training your toddler or preschooler. If that's you, you want to click the link in the description box below, because I have a potty training checklist. This freebie checklist will help you figure out what you need to do in order to increase the success rate of your child potty training. Sometimes it can feel like you have no idea what you're doing, especially if you're the only one in your friend group that is potty training your child. So this checklist is quick, easy things to remember when you are going through the process of potty training your child so that they can potty train successfully and you can stop wiping butts, because who's trying to do that forever? So if that's something that you need, make sure to check out the description box below and in the comments where I will have the link for you so that you can take advantage of it while it's still free, okay? Again, if you want something to help with potty training, make sure to click the link in the description box and comment so that you can get access to that checklist for you and your little one. All right, now that we got that out the way, let's move on to the next tip on how to stop yelling at your toddler, and that is to take a time out. Timeouts are not just for toddlers or for your kids, they're for you too. Sometimes your child can get you so upset that the only thing left to do is remove yourself from the situation. I do this often where I could just leave for like a few moments, take a deep breath, and then come back and re-enter the situation with my child. Now, I know sometimes in the moment you want to kind of teach the lesson, but sometimes the lesson is for them to see that you left a situation, calm down, and then you return back to them. You could teach the lesson later. The goal is to always remain calm with your children. If you're in a situation where you can't remove yourself, so you might be out in public or at an event, the counting method is very effective before taking action. Sometimes just closing your eyes, counting to 3, 5, 7, 10 can really help you focus and get back into center before overreacting. Honestly, it's the difference between making a scene and making a scene. Okay. You can also call a family member or a loved one to see if they can give you some reprieve for a couple of hours. I know that I try to do that when my husband comes home from work. I'll say, look, I need 30 minutes, and he will take him, and that's just enough time to woo-saw so that you can recollect your thoughts and then rejoin the family. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and all the tips I'm getting, make sure to like it so I know that you like this and I need to make more videos like this. Okay, girl? The next tip I have for you when it comes to stop yelling at your toddler is to set expectations. This is a challenge, and it's a challenge for me too, because sometimes you'll do something or you expect something of your child and you have to remember that they're brand new and they don't even know, and you're like an adult, so you know better, right? So setting expectations will also help you keep it down a notch when you're asking your child or giving them a directive, or in situations where they have no idea of what to do next. Now look, if you're potty training your child, I know that in the early stages, there are growing pains. Sometimes you can say, this is how you're supposed to sit on the toilet. This is how you're supposed to wipe yourself. This is how you wash your hands. But they're still gonna need your assistance doing it. I mean, they're only 3. So giving grace when necessary and understanding that even though you've showed them, you might have to continue to show them for 6 more months is the expectation. But you need to take accountability as well. Setting expectations goes for you too. If you're going bowling with your toddler, you know they can't do 3 hours. So don't stay at the bowling alley for 3 hours. At most, they might give you 30 minutes that they're interested in activity. And then after that, they're gonna wanna do something else. So set expectations based on your child's age, and you know their attention span by that time. So don't do activities that you know will overly drain them or put you in a situation that might cause you to yell. Just think about that in advance before doing activities outdoor. Also keep in mind too that if it's almost your toddler or child's nap time and you're taking them out in the street, they're going to fuss. So just be prepared for that. Set that expectation up front too. I know sometimes when we have things to do, we just can't get around it and we have to take them out at that particular time. Just know they're going to be fussy. So try to also, like, while you're in the car, get them to sleep, or doing activities that allow them to stay in the stroller or be really quiet. Setting those expectations up front will decrease the likelihood of you having a freak out on people in public, because it is not cute, okay? We don't want that for you. The next tip on how to stop yelling at your toddler is to give grace. And this is one of the hardest things to do, especially for parents. Look, I can tell you right now, it is not a perfect science being a parent. You are going to make mistakes daily. Some days you're going to nail it, and some days you are not. But that's okay, and that's when giving grace is due for you and your children. Y'all are both learning at the same time. I mean, no one really taught you how to be a parent, and no one really taught them how to be a toddler. So y'all are both learning at the same time how to coexist in this relationship that you have with each other of parent and child. So give each other grace so that you can have the best possible experience for both of you. This might be controversial too, but if you do something to your child, it's okay to apologize, even if they're 2 years old. This is something my husband and I practice, and it's been very, very effective. If you see that maybe you yelled at your child or you over-escalated a situation that could have been brought down to an 8, but you went to 15, apologize to them. It shows them that you deserve as much grace as you give them, and children are really forgiving and compassionate. Apologizing also shows a level of humility, and in that moment you give yourself grace because you realize that you might have overdid it. You never want your child to be afraid of you because you've given them a directive, and apologizing, when done effectively, will allow you to build trust and also strengthen relationship with your child, because they see too that mommy and daddy make mistakes and they say sorry to me when they are wrong. Giving grace is also important because sometimes you can't discuss with your child why they did something that made you upset because of age. Even though your kids are getting older, comprehension at like 18 months old is not the same as like a 6-year-old. So trying to explain something to an 18-month-old might be unproductive. So sometimes that's why you have to give yourself grace that if something happens and the 18-month-old did something like drawing on the wall, smearing poop on the carpet, they might not understand like the significance of why they did it wrong, even though you told them not to. So that's where the level of grace comes in based on age, because you can't like sit down and have a heart-to-heart with a 12-month-old. What are you gonna get out of it, right? Talking regularly to loved ones will also help you tap into that conscious parenting. I don't believe in taking advice from everybody, but there are some nuggets that you can take from specific people that will help you tap into why you just have to give grace and that we're all doing the best that we can. It's not a perfect science. Sometimes you might yell at your child. Sometimes they might yell at you. And that's okay. But talking regularly to other parents and adults will also allow you to have some comfort in knowing that it's okay. We are all learning how to do this at the same time. Remember, everybody's life experiences, even your children's life experiences, is completely different. So when it comes to parenting, just giving yourself grace, giving your children grace will allow for a better relationship for everybody involved. Now that you have learned how to stop yelling at your toddler, the next step is to get your toddler to speak more confidently to you. Watch this video if you want to get your toddler to speak to you confidently to maximize results and to decrease the likelihood of you yelling at your child.